Hey, we're live. Brought
Yes,
to
we
you
are.
by Peach Flavored Bubbly. What do you got going on there, John?
No, I got blackberry.
So, nothing I'd rather do than spend time with you, John, once a week during our pandemic lockdown. We're going into our third lockdown. No business, no fun. It's one day at a time and lots of Netflix. But
Exactly.
above and beyond that, the best part of the day today is that we have a special guest with us all the way from Kansas City. And before I introduce her, I just want to give you a quick background as to how I met Erin, and that is through our good friend, Abbas, all the way from Album Polka. Anybody who's been in the industry for any amount of time knows Album Polka. They're both established in Canada and the US, one of the finest lines of wedding albums and such. So, anyways, Erin was a speaker up in, I believe, Calgary or somewhere in Alberta a bunch of years ago that Abbas brought in at one of their events up there. And, he raved about that event on and on and on. And then he said, you got to have Erin in on one of your live streams. So there she is. Welcome, Erin. How are you?
Welcome,
I'm
Erin.
good.
So
Thank you
nice.
for having me.
Yeah, like John said earlier, you're a rose between two thorns.
Oh, you're so nice.
One thing about John, though, even though he's completely bald, he's one of the best looking guys in the photographic industry. So we'll give him that. Erin, I want to ask you, you're from Kansas City, right?
I live in the middle of Kansas, but I have a studio in Kansas City.
All right. Can you explain that a little bit? Give us a little bit of background. I'm a little bit confused. Me and my brain just didn't follow that one.
Okay, so right at the beginning of the pandemic,
Right.
my family, we moved to be closer to my mom and dad. And my parents live out in the middle of the country. Like they're at a farm. And so we moved to this small town that almost all of my family they're from. And I've actually never lived here, but I've felt like this was my home my whole life. And so now we finally live here. And I'm about 2.5 hours away from my studio in Kansas City.
Okay. So you're sort of super commuting, or are you? Or just during lockdown?
No, we do. I guess I super commute, but I'll book a handful of sessions over the weekend, and then we'll go up and we'll stay the weekend,
Nice.
and then I'll work those, and then we come home. And
All right.
I mean, we edit at home anyway, right?
Okay. I sound really stupid. That's because I am most days, but I just want to be clear on where your studio is in what city?
Kansas City.
Nice. Now that's in Missouri, if my geography.
It actually is.
All right. I knew that. I knew that. And what about the small town that you're living with your family? Where's that?
In Kansas.
Okay. So it's just a little town in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Lots of family.
Yes. Like we have a joke that we have to marry outside of this town.
That's always a good.
Small
My
towns.
husband's from Mexico City, so I think I did just fine.
I think you went far enough.
I went
think
far
you're
enough.
Yeah, you certainly did in that one. That's awesome. So okay, that's good. So I'm just want to ask you one question before we get into your photographic endeavors and whatnot. You're in this situation right now. Is it because of the lockdown and it's temporary, or is this something you're rolling into as a permanent situation? This whole commuting a 2.5 hour thing, and I find it fascinating, by the way.
So we are okay. So there's a handful of things that kind of go into play. So first off, we have 3 children. 2 are older.
Nice.
And they're in their 20s.
Okay,
and then we have.
That's impossible. You look like you just graduated college.
Well, you're so kind. I hope that stays with me forever and ever.
That's amazing.
And then we had a baby, so we have a 2-year-old.
Right.
And so moving near my parents allows for amazing babysitting.
No kidding.
And during a pandemic, that is priceless.
So good for the kids too. So, all right, that's cool. So this is sort of an interim thing, I would imagine. And are you planning to move the whole family back when things sort of go back to normal, back to Kansas City?
No. We bought a little house here,
Okay.
and we renovated it. It's a historic home.
Nice.
And we're going to be here forever. And my weddings and stuff, I had primarily worked in Kansas City for a handful of years, but then we started branching out. And I'm at the point now where we travel all over the world for weddings anyway.
Okay.
And I was traveling to speak and teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't really matter if we were in Kansas City so much.
Okay.
Why I like Kansas City is because I absolutely love my studio.
Oh, tell us about it.
So it's 2,500 square feet. And I have an area, there are 2 doors. And so I have an area where we can do sales and meetings. And it has kind of a little kitchen, a refrigerator, and kind of a gallery type setting. And there's a hallway you walk down when you first come in. It has just art hanging all the way through the walls. And then on the other side is all shooting space. And so you could shoot in the selling area, but it's really more geared for like us to wrap and take care of products. But the other side is filled with different vignettes and walls that I've designed and created that go with my target client, and it assists me with the types of work that I want to be doing.
Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
You should put her website up there. You guys got to check out her website. It's photosedge.com. Get a sense of the quality of her work. Now, I understand you're in several brands, so we'll talk about that in a minute. And so can I ask you a personal question? It's sort of businessy personal. Do you own the studio, or are you renting it? And either way, you're totally in love with it, obviously. So you're hoping to stay there for a while.
So we've been there 12 years. And we lease our space. It's in the historic Firestone building. So it's like probably an $18 million building. I really only need like a small space. This building is amazing because like Hemingway has been there, and a lot of famous people. F. Scott Fitzgerald was there. So it's just a very inspiring building that has a lot of history.
I'm Googling that, by the way. Historic Firestone Building, Missouri. I'm wondering if that's branded with the Firestone Tire Company of sorts.
It was the Firestone Tire Company originally. That's their son, when he built his own place, that was where he built it. And then Western Auto Lofts built right next door.
Wow.
And he was friends with all of these people. He was friends with Hemingway. He was friends with F. Scott Fitzgerald. And so when we first got there, we were on the 7th floor. And on the 7th floor, that was actually their showroom floor.
Nice. And
Queer Eye came to film in our studio.
Right.
So we moved down 2 floors in the same area, like in the same back of the building area.
Nice.
But we moved down 2 floors and we got extra square footage.
That's pretty cool. So I'm on a website at Invective, whatever it's called, 2001 Grand Avenue. Is that where it is?
Yeah.
All right, cool. There's some nice pictures online. Wow. Spectacular. That's absolutely amazing. So
and we have a skyline view. You can't
you can't beat it, eh?
You can't beat it. It's amazing.
That's pretty cool. All right, so I want to get back to that sort of where you're at with your wedding photography business, and we'll line it up with your building and all that stuff in Kansas City. And I want to talk about right now the other 2 brands. You mentioned you got 3 brands going on. Are they all? Can you tell us what they are?
Yeah. So we had one brand, and maybe I'll talk about this because this might be really interesting to other photographers. So we had one brand, and years ago, I had dissected all of the different genres that I had done, and it became too much, and then I put it into one. Well, as our weddings began to grow and evolve, I had to think about whether or not I was going to break off with my personal brand into weddings where they were headed, Or if I needed to just keep Photos Edge to be weddings and then break off my seniors, and now we're developing Edge seniors, and it's all just senior photography, and that's a little bit more volume. And then we'll add families in with kind of our Edge seniors type stuff, and I might brand that off separately if it evolves, but I'm not really sure, because our families, we don't market. They just trickle in from the weddings and the high school seniors.
Right.
But the other two that we market, I started wanting to just kind of veer off and separate it. And some of what made me do that was Instagram. So the way that Instagram works, it has its own SEO that works within it, kind of like Google. And so when you hyper focus all of your posts onto one type of niche, it actually gets seen further. And so over the last couple of years, my Photos Edge Instagram and my Edge Seniors Instagram, I completely just stopped posting. I stopped posting so that I could start evaluating and creating these brands. That also gave me a chance to reevaluate and reestablish myself as an artist and what I wanted to do, how I wanted to serve these people, and also just give myself some time to reevaluate the quality of work and what I was going to be producing. And I'm all about taking the time that I need to do things. Now, I have an established enough business that I have people that come in through word of mouth. And anytime I post something on Facebook, I get, inquiries. So it's not like I have to market horribly hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I get it. Yeah.
And so this gave me this ability to kind of establish these brands and really go after how I was going to be serving the client.
That's pretty amazing. So you took the time out to sort of reinvent yourself and or stop and sort of ponder, where do I really want to go? How do I want to branch out? So the three major brands that well, there's two that you got established, it sounds like: weddings, seniors, and possibly families.
No, so weddings and seniors, and then my personal brand, which I am developing a non-for-profit organization.
Okay.
And it actually, I meet people at their trauma and their pain, and I photograph all different types of people from different walks of life.
Wow.
Where they are struggling or are hurt.
That's a personal project with, obviously, through photography that you're taking on. You feel a calling towards it. You feel there's something there, a creative outlet. There's a form of expression for you, and something obviously you feel very deeply about.
I do. So do you want to know where this came from?
Absolutely. We're all ears. You're asking? We're all ears.
So there are two stories that ended up lining up that caused this. And the first one was my daughter. She had shattered her spine in a really horrible horseback riding accident.
Oh, no.
And this was about 5 years ago. And she had 3 reconstructive surgeries over the course of several years. And she's still going through healing process and rehabilitation. And like right now, her hip is locked up and it's kind of messing up her spine a little bit. And she has PTSD, trauma, all kinds of things, just a lot.
How old is she, by the way, just before you continue?
She was 15 when the accident happened, and she is 19 now.
Okay, so not that long ago.
No. So she's doing really well. She's a fighter and she's amazing, and she refused to be a victim, which I am so proud of. And I did these portraits of her shortly after her first surgery. And she's, or maybe it was after the second one. I think it was after the second surgery. The first 2 were really close together. And then the third one was really far. So I did these portraits, and we had all of this medicine. So she had 180 infections in her body, and she had to take 99 pills a day for like months. So we did in-home IVs. We had all kinds of medicine. We did all kinds of stuff. I was kind of a nurse. I went from working full-time to like working less than 20 hours a week. And there was just, I was a mom and having to be a main caregiver. Yeah. So through that process, I started realizing that I wanted to make a change in my business. And I wanted to, but I didn't know what that change was yet. And so a couple of years had go by, and then that's when I stopped kind of posting on Instagram and was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and how I was going to really help people, because I started feeling like everything that we were doing was in vain. And it just, even as photography as a whole, like everybody's like, oh, this is great. I do it for these people. It's their legacy, but it feels so shallow, and I needed something deeper, at least for me. So then the other part of those portraits was that I recently had a friend who passed away, like really recently, like Monday I was at the funeral.
Oh,
So she had called me 6 years ago. So it was a year before Emma had shattered her spine. It was about 6 months probably before. And she had a really hard life, and we had kind of drifted away, and she called me, and she was needed to get clean, and she was a felon at the time, and she was wanted in multiple states. And she had she was addicted to drugs. So she asked me to come get her, and I went and I got her and came back to my house, and we got her cleaned up. And then the day before, she wanted to go and turn herself in. And so the day before she went and turned herself in, I went and did portraits of her. We spent an entire day driving around Kansas City.
wow.
And we played music and had a good time, and I photographed her. And
was this helping her? Was she connecting with, how often photo shoots will help a person feel better, and it'll increase their self-esteem in many ways. Was she getting that?
Well, I told you that she died, so I'm not done with the story.
Well, okay. I'll shut up then. I'll just.
No, it's okay.
I find this very fascinating, by the way. So.
No, it did at the time. It was amazing. And I had edited 3 pictures out of the stuff that I had taken, and I sent them to her in prison. And 5 years later, she gets out of prison. We've gone through all of the stuff with Emma's accident, and she's doing really good for a while. Then she gets in with an abusive relationship, and he's incredibly abusive, and she starts using again.
Wow.
And at the time that she died, he actually was in prison or jail because he almost choked her to death. That's how bad the domestic violence was. And I had her come up, and I'd gone and gotten her a couple of times. She spent Christmas with our family the year before COVID. And, she was still trying, but it wasn't quite the same. I could tell she had been, beaten down. But I was really glad to spend that time with her. And then she got back into the same bad relationship, and then COVID and all of that. It was pretty rough for her. And so she died in an accident trying to get from Oklahoma to Wichita, Kansas. And
a car accident?
Yes. And so then we go down to see the body because they're going to need to do stuff with the body in order to get it across state lines. So we go down, and I meet her family, and I took photos. They'd asked me to. And then I remembered I had all these pictures of her. And so I told them, I was like, I have these pictures of Lindsay. I'm going to edit them, and then I'm going to send them all to you. And they were like, oh, thank you so much, because, we're going to have to cremate her to get her over. And we would really like it if we had beautiful pictures. Those were amazing. So I sat down and I started editing, and it was really hard. And that was just this last week. And I was just crying through it because there was so much hope. There was so much hope in those photos. Like you could tell she was going to change her life.
Yeah.
And so I edited the pictures and was working on them. And then I sent them over. And then, of course, we went to the funeral on Monday, and there were all these beautiful photographs. Like they had them printed big, And they did there was a collage of stuff. It was really incredible. And I got to see, and she had children. She had 3 children, and she had 2 little ones that were 10 and 7. And the 10-year-old asked me, he was like, do you like photography? Maybe I should get into photography. Because, these images had such an impact
Right.
on him and his life. And I was like, I'm so glad that I had these photos at this time in her life where I met her at her pain when, for her, this was what we all thought was rock bottom. Mm-hmm. And it probably would have been had there not been an accident, because, there's things people can come out of or keep working on. And addiction issues are something that everybody has to keep working on. Mm-hmm. And prison isn't kind to anybody. So
No.
the journey afterwards was really difficult, but the hope in her eyes was something that was really amazing. And so I just realized that through these portraits, and of course I had other people that were coming. I photographed my friend who I photographed her wedding, and she now, like several years later, she has cancer, breast cancer. And so I documented her journey through breast cancer. And then I have a really amazing woman coming up to see me from Texas. Her name is Namalakai. And she actually had to go through clitoris reconstruction because in her culture, they remove, so they have female mutilation, genital mutilation. And so I'm photographing her, and she is coming out with a book. Do
you know that lady?
I do.
Okay.
I met her on Clubhouse.
Okay.
In a group called the 1%ers.
It sounds to me like you're really connecting with this style of photography, very, very deep personal stories, but you're starting with your personal circle of acquaintances and people that you know, and possibly branching out. And this lady here, who you just were talking about,
recently met her.
Yeah, so you're expanding outwards into this area of photography, so to speak. Is that something that's reflective of this calling that you're feeling, and obviously you're connecting with, and the powerful effect that it has on you and others?
Yeah, so it is. I am doing that. But if we look back at our weddings and we look back at like the high school seniors I was photographing, I've been doing this for years.
Okay.
I just didn't understand, but I was attracting those types of people. And so I would even get people that are like, have an example, wedding with my weddings. One of my favorite weddings, the woman had called, the bride was talking to me, and wonderful couple. And they were like, our number one concern is that our wedding's going to end up on TMZ. And we don't want it there, you know, and like we have conflicts here, or we have drama here, or, I've always been afraid of the tabloids because they have been mean to me and horrible and abusive. And I want my life to be sacred. I want my intimate moments. And so we were meeting people there. And, then you have, with weddings, you have family that, parents that are divorced and hate each other, and you have to battle that. Or, we've dealt with people that have gone through abuse, or people that have been exploited, and so when, 1 in 5 women have been sexually assaulted or raped. Seriously, I understand those people. And so when, and I understand the privacy that a lot of them want to have with their wedding photos and with their personal life.
Yeah.
And so we've done that with seniors. I ended up, I have, I had a senior with albinoism. That was cool. I think I mispronounced that. I'm bad at that. And she was like one of my favorite people to photograph. It was amazing. She was beautiful and wonderful, and I get people that, I think one of my first seniors that I ever had was a girl that had like an eating disorder. And we started she started opening up in conversation, and I started creating art. I asked her to come back, and I wanted to do an art piece with her, and so I've always attracted those people, and I love them. And so with the rebranding, it's all about how to serve those types of people.
When
Right.
you do these kind of shots, are they more like a portrait type shot, or is it more of a lifestyle type shooting, or?
They're portraits.
Okay. So not like candid stuff, just them day in the life, shooting them type of thing. It's an actual portrait session. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
Yeah, it got real heavy real fast.
Yeah, we certainly did. There was you could hear a pin drop.
That's okay. I was just listening because I think it's amazing what you're doing. So
Thank you.
Well, it's your journey too, and I got to ask you. I got a bunch of questions, but I just quickly got to ask you: is there any place that we could see those images from your friend who you documented, the one who had hope 4 or 5 years ago and who recently passed away? Are those pictures out there, or are they just totally private?
I haven't
right now?
actually posted them yet. I'm about to on my Instagram.
Okay.
But I did post on my Instagram, I did post a raw, unedited picture of the woman who was going through cancer.
Okay.
And you'll also see the portraits of my daughter.
Where can we find you on Instagram?
It's Erin Hernandez-Reisner.
Pretty
Just my name.
simple. There we go. I'm going
if
there
anybody
now.
wants to see it nice and big.
Yeah, we can get to sort of visually see what it is you're talking about. All right, I just followed you. There we go. Where's your daughter? She's holding all those
Pills.
pharmaceuticals. Who's the lady on the right with the big scar? Lower back.
That's my daughter.
That's your daughter.
Yes.
It looks like they're operating on her spinal cord.
Yeah.
That's intense. She's beautiful, by the way. I have a 24-year-old daughter who was into horseback riding since the age of 8 or 9. And, that was always something I was always afraid of, serious accidents. So,
Yeah,
at
the
her.
saddle slipped and she had hit a 120-year-old post wrapped in barbed wire.
Ow! That hurts. So, yeah, if anybody wants to go see Erin Hernandez-Reisner on Instagram, you can see some of the pictures there, including some of the shots you did of your daughter. So, yeah. Anyways, where are you going with all this and these direction and that you're talking about with this style of photography? How do you see it evolving? Do you have any plans, hopes, ambitions, aspirations for the, let's say, the next year, next 2 years, next 5 years type of thing?
Yeah, so I've been approached by a production company who wants to come out, and we're working on a class for photographers.
Right.
And we're thinking about right now, and it's not fully formulated, so it's called Gladiators Rising.
Cool.
And it's all about when you're in pain and struggle, being able to rise up and provide for your family, and to be able to be an artist in your own right, and discovering and setting aside, like being able to separate being able to meet photographers where they are when they have this ambition and they have a drive and they really want to do something, but they're struggling at doing it and getting it completed. I'm the person that's gone through all these really hard times, and I've managed to keep my business. I've had a thriving business. It's been an evolving business, and I want to help people do that too. And, I can only photograph so many people.
Yeah.
But if I teach photographers how to photograph, if I teach photographers how to actually provide for their families, if I teach photographers how to connect with their target clients, then now I'm able to influence and affect a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. If people wanted to find out more about that as it evolves, they could probably just go to your Instagram feed, and I'm sure at some point in time you'll be announcing it somewhere there.
Yes, I
Or
am. And
Facebook.
I'm working on my own website with Erin Hernandez-Reisner right now.
Cool.
So that'll probably be out here in like the next couple weeks. It'll be finished.
That must be the trend right now because I'm just working on my new website too, and I've heard a couple other people saying the same thing.
That's good. Good minds. Moving into that direction.
Well, with us, we're all shut down right now here in Ontario, so we might as well do something with ourselves that's constructive. So,
Yeah.
I'm preparing for when it opens up.
Are you, well, let me ask you my other question I had floating in the back of my head about that. Are you guys locked down there in Missouri?
Well, I live in Kansas.
Or sorry, Kansas?
Missouri and Kansas are very, I want to say similar a little bit in the lockdowns. It's really hard. So we live around a handful of people that don't believe it.
that's like
And
here.
then we live around a lot of people who take it seriously. And so, yes, parts of it are in lockdown. They were. Our mayor keeps in Kansas, our mayor keeps trying to be strict with it. And then everyone else like comes in and like they lobby against her and like lawyers will come in and like overthrow stuff. So it's
Okay.
nearly impossible for her to fully lock stuff down, which ultimately for those of us, we're virtually locked down because we're like, well, it's not safe outside.
So has your wedding business come to a complete standstill?
Yeah.
Seniors? Family?
No, not so much. Like our portraits aren't too bad. But not that our seniors in Kansas City have been actually pretty good. Like I have one I just had to reschedule for the funeral, but here in like a couple of days I'll be photographing and a couple of seniors. I have been going slower with the amount of work that I've been doing over the pandemic. And I think I didn't really know why at first. I felt like, I mean, I could have marketed and done a whole lot more. I could have talked to people. I could have done stuff, but I was in a position where, you know, we were renovating a house, which takes time. And we were in a position where I really personally needed to heal. And I needed to process my own trauma and be able to deal with some of my own PTSD from my daughter's accident and all of the things that were going on. And, you know, now that things were better, all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, things are okay. And I'm not okay. And I should be. And so I took the time to take care of myself. And now I'm like running, if that makes sense. Like not catching up. I'm just inspired now. And I get and I feel creative. And and there for a while I felt burnt out, but I wasn't burnt out on photography. I was tired. I was genuinely exhausted.
Yeah.
So I got to rest up and go home, be safe, find my roots, be okay. Enjoy my baby.
And you're just busy enough to keep you in the game and obviously keep doing that. Keep your finger on the ball, so to speak. Does your husband work with you or is he doing his own thing?
No, my husband works with me full time. So he manages Erin Hernandez-Reisner.
Okay, cool.
He makes everything work and wonderful. So
Nice.
yeah.
Is he there beside you, so you have to say that, or?
No, but he is like working on another computer.
Nice.
Now
So
we
like,
did photograph like 4 weddings through the pandemic. Like we had them. But when I say like, I guess you say standstill, you probably meant no, but it feels like none, you know, when you're photographing a lot. But we're kind of at the point where the last like couple of years, I've really only photographed like 5 to 7 weddings a year. So I do like, I want to say like luxury, but honestly, like some of the weddings are not necessarily a luxury wedding. They just spent a lot of money with me. and they buy a lot of product and they want the art. And so I'm hired as an artist to work with them and create really beautiful art out of their real life. And this wonderful moment that they spend a lot of time and care putting together. But that doesn't mean that everybody's like full on like cascading flowers everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it is, but most of the time, like, I don't know. So I don't know how to describe that.
It's like a photographer's dream client. They respect what you do and your artwork, and that's what they want.
Yes. And we like talk a lot about the type of art and what I'm creating before I ever go in. And so I know their families, I know who the most important people are to them. And being able to only do like a select few weddings really allows me to not only well, I mean, there's the pandemic, so it'll eventually be travel, you know, but it allows me to really, on the back end, the type of art and the quality of art that I do is really different because so I am the first autistic photographer to be recognized by global brands in the wedding and portrait industry. That comes with superpowers. So I have eagle eye vision. So I see things like super sharp, really, really, really crisp. I also have technochromacy. So I see 100 million colors.
Right.
And normal people only see 1 million. So when I see 100 million colors, and then I'm allowed to photograph like 7 weddings that pay me enough to do this, I can make some really, really cool images.
Yeah.
And I can adjust and shift the colors, the way that things feel and what it looks like. And I can, you know, I was a photojournalist working for a newspaper when I was younger. So I always like have this sense of truth to my images. Like there's the word like authentic, but you know, when you talk to a lot of people, the word authentic can actually mean not real. Like you can cultivate something that feels authentic, but it's not actually authentic.
All right.
And millennials straight up know that. Yes, yes. And so I always like find that line of truth and real where the honesty balance lies, because I don't want to adjust or change a wedding to the point where it's not these people or it's not the choices that they made or it doesn't look the way it's supposed to look. But sometimes when we're capturing stuff, like I'm editing a picture right now and the bride is sitting by a window, the groom is standing behind her, leaned up against a fireplace, like a hearth type thing. And there's so much blue hitting her dress. But the drapes were a burgundy and the wall is gold. And when the photo was taken, which I shoot Nikon for a reason because they have the best color and I can micro adjust color while I'm taking a picture. And so I was adjusting, but the sun coming in, the light coming in from outside made the bottom part of her dress really blue. And it just doesn't go. And it didn't look that way to the naked eye. So I go in there and I'm actually shifting, you know, I'm color toning and I'm shifting that blue on out of there. And I'm harmonizing, making that greenish gold, the actual gold of the wallpaper. And so, because everything was really set up and staged to begin with. And now I'm just really making it beautiful. So anyway, that's what I love doing with my weddings.
Yeah.
And they really do get, I guess, an artist. And I went to art school, so I have a degree in art.
Well, that's cool. So that's that's part of your superpowers is this thing that you have with your ability to see colors, and you have autism, which also gives you a bit of an edge in many ways, creative ways. You had mentioned.
Thanks.
Well, it makes her, I think, with that part, it actually gives you the advantage over people with details, seeing the details and getting them right.
Focus.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about it was all in vain. Remember saying that?
Yes.
I just wanted to expand on that if we can about, and I think you were talking in reference to the wedding industry, possibly, maybe more than that.
I think it's kind of all of it. I think it's the photographic industry as a whole. I think that there are people that are working on it and making it better. I think there are genuinely good photographers out there with amazing hearts and are wonderful people. So I'm not trying to discredit an entire industry. That would be really horrible.
Well, what did you mean then by all in vain?
So I feel like people go after money, and I don't think it's wrong to make a living, but I feel like they go after money really hardcore. And then they turn around and do it in the name of art.
Right.
And I feel like they're pretending to be artists without actually taking the time to be an artist.
Right.
And I think that other people are just viewing it even as like, I'm a photographer and I'm doing this. But when I look at our industry and I look at education, and let me tell you, like, I mean, I'm somebody that's coming out and probably like, I've even spoken at like WPPI and imaging and like different places. I've spoken about how to work less than 20 hours and make 6 figures. So
Okay.
I'm the person that's actually like making money, and there are other people that are too, but I'm watching people like I don't like the whole you have to be making 6 figures, you have to be making 7 figures, you have to be going after this money, because then you're going after money. And I wish that people had the heart to just think about how they want to actually help people.
Right.
And then find a way for like, and you have to actually, like for me, I did my bills and I knew my minimums and I knew the amount of money that I needed to be making. So I built my structure from that. And so it wasn't in vain. It was to provide for my family. So when people were hiring me or they were booking us, it was coming in to help something, especially when our daughter was going through medical. I don't think there's a single client of mine that didn't know like what we were going through. Like they knew. I mean, they didn't know the gravity of it because it wasn't their job to know that. I didn't want it to be a burden on them. It wasn't. And every time I got to photograph somebody during that time, it was my way of like getting to be a part of their lives and outside of my own. So I could kind of escape my own issues and leave those at home and like go into somebody else's life and kind of feed and live off of it, their joy and their happiness. We laugh together. We cry together. It's, and then I'm sitting here like documenting these people that I fall in love with. And I think that our photographic industry has gone into money and not gone into loving people.
Yeah.
Can I say something to that?
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's I don't think it's fallen. It's always been about the money because for the most part, for most people, it's always been about running a business and happen to be in the photographic arts. Sounds to me like you are a true artist in the deepest sense. I mean, you went to art school, you got a degree in that. So you have that. You know what I mean? For me, you described me, by the way, when you talk about the person who's going after the money. I've always said I was a businessman first and an artist second because I never felt that connection. Now, so in a sense, we're going to agree to disagree, but not really because we both have our own paths that we're taking and they both make sense. It's whatever I believe your personal vision and or your personal what you value the most. And I don't think like I'm not a greedy, money grubbing, profiteering capitalist. That's not me. But I do value the idea of making money as a way to survive from year to year to year.
Ooh, I agree with that. But
me,
there's a difference. Can I ask you a question though?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you care about your clients and love them?
Oh, absolutely, 110%.
Okay, then you're not who we're talking about.
All right. So I don't know who you're talking about. Maybe it'll come clear to me in time. But I've always felt that in order to be successful as a photographic artist, I needed to make money so that I can sort of support that habit. Yep. I'm nowhere near, I don't think, in any way, shape, or form, as artistic as you are, and many like you who I know, many in the industry, who I'm like, wow, these people are amazing. I look at them, I go, they're amazing. I wish I had a little more of that. And it would certainly help my photography, but I don't feel that connection that you do. And that's okay. We all got our own journeys. Do you know Brian DeMint by chance?
Probably.
I'm
real bad at names. I'm good at faces and art.
He's
Show
in
me
Missouri.
somebody's art.
He's in Joplin, Missouri.
Okay.
I meant to mention that earlier because you said a lot of stuff that reminded me of him. He's very, very artistic, and he photographed some people that were in rough situations and transformed their lives. But anyways, I just wanted to ask you that. So, but anyways, back to my original observation. I get where you're coming from, and I totally 100% respect it and appreciate it. And like I said, for me, I'm 62 now. I'm like going, where am I going to go with my career, right? Maybe I want to go down this avenue. Maybe a new doorway will open up for me. But for now, it's like survival because I got a wife to support. We work together, and we got bills to pay.
So I'm not saying don't make money, because when I teach and speak, one of the things I say is don't starve your family to feed your soul.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I think that people, and coming at it from an artistic perspective, it is imperative that we actually make money and can survive and even thrive and do the things that we dream of and that we want. And I think that one thing that people need to realize is that their clients want them to be successful too. And their clients don't want them to starve. They want them to be amazing. They want them to have a good living and to provide, and so that's where understanding what you're supposed to be charging and how to provide a good service is going to be, it allows people to see you, find you, and pay for you, even because people want to. And they don't, and sometimes they can't afford it, and that's okay. I think that we have to get into this reality thing. And I don't know, I could talk business all day, because actually I was an artist. Art school. I have the first art history degree from my university, along with a photography degree. But my husband, how I started my business was that my husband got laid off from a job, and he came home, and we were not making a lot of money. And we sat down and we did all of our bills, and there was like $30 left over, and we needed to make $820 because all of our bills were $850 for the next month. That's how we started our photography business. So I made $850 the next month, and I did it the next one. I did it the next one. And then by year 2, we were making 6 figures. So I am all about people doing that. I don't. The vanity comes into when photographers are doing it and they're making it about themselves, and they fail to make it about their clients.
Okay.
There's lots of different aspects. I'm trying to.
That makes more sense than where I was going in my head.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want to be a Picasso, I guess,
But you look at Picasso, great artist and everything, but he lived in poverty all his life. He didn't care.
Right.
It never affected his creativity or his artwork. Now his family's all rich. He's gone, but
right. Well, my husband, he was also not a very nice person, but my husband and I we were just talking about this last night. We were talking about the amount of artists that became famous after they died. And I was like, so were there a lot of rich people watching their art and going, they're kind of crazy. So when they die, I can then take and buy this work that I like, we were thinking about Van Gogh. And I'm like, I mean, I know that that's not the story, but if it was, would they have even told us?
Exactly.
True.
And a lot of them could be made up stories just to sell the artwork. So, I mean.
Right.
But it does make you think. They didn't do it for the money because they weren't making any money when they were doing their artwork. They died and their family became rich. So, I mean.
And people, when you evaluate Michelangelo's life, and you see what happens, and most people are like, oh, the Sistine Chapel. He was forced to paint that at a really old age. He was forced to paint that. They don't understand that this man probably and really didn't want to have to paint this. And so, and it's beautiful. And I went, I'm 41, and my 40th birthday, my husband got me a semi-private tour through the Vatican, and I got to go in and look at Michelangelo and
Nice.
see it, and I did take pictures with my cell phone. So they didn't actually stop me. So whatever. When you do those private tours, you can actually take pictures. They tell you can. So that was nice. But when I was sitting there and I was looking at it, I was watching, I could feel it, and it was really heavy. And a couple years prior, we were in Florence, and I had gone through the Medici Chapel, and Michelangelo had fled the Medicis, and he had people that were working under him that were supposed to be finishing these sculptures, and they actually killed them all. They murdered all the artists.
Well, that's no fun.
And so there's all of this, and you go in there, and he left the Mary, the Virgin Mary, holding baby Jesus. It's unfinished, and I truly believe, because he didn't like them, that he left it unfinished for a reason, and he never went back to Florence, actually. So when they do the two statues of the brothers, and then this is the only time, and I have to do more research. I got to do more research, but it's one of the only times that Michelangelo actually sculpted Jesus turned away, and he's got his head buried in Mary's bosom, and he's turned away.
Okay.
And that was a symbol of, the disapproval of the Medici family. And it's interesting because they don't actually talk about that. But if you research what all the different symbolism meant, which Michelangelo is known for, and even has kind of defined some of that, it's really cool. Anyway, sorry. I love the history. I love the art history.
That's fascinating. I love symbolism and mythology and stuff like that, which in a sense that's starting to get into that area. When you talk, it's representative of what was going on at the time. Just so I understand this, the Medici family, who I've heard of before, they sort of dominated the area at the time. They were very powerful, right?
Yes. So there were 7 founders of the Renaissance, and they all lived in Florence.
Yeah.
And the Medici family was the head of that.
Did you learn, this almost sounds like the mafia. Did you learn this in art school, or did you study it on your own?
The art mafia.
Yeah.
So both. So I had the privilege of being able to study under this woman named Sarah Shear. And she was getting her doctorate, or maybe hadn't gotten her doctorate, just an adjunct professor. I'm not sure what she was, what her actual title was. I graduated college a really long time ago. Anyway, she was brilliant woman, and she was teaching art history. And so I took the standard art history classes, but she was so good and so into history that she just started asking if she could teach all these classes if these students would come. And so her classes became filled with English students, history students, a handful of art students, philosophy students. Everybody just started taking her classes because she was this brilliant woman. And we actually got to study, one of the classes we studied was the history of pornography. And that was very interesting.
That would be.
I knew Rob was going to say that.
Well, and the history of pornography actually lends itself to why women were not allowed to go to college. There's a whole line through history that was, we're protecting, and the hierarchy and the sexism and all the other stuff. But anyway, it was really, it's actually really cool. And so through stuff, I got to understand certain things. And then when we went to the Medici Chapel and I was walking through, I had the aha moment because I understood the symbolism. And I was like, whoa, this is insane. And so when you track Michelangelo's journey and you know that he like never really went back, then you start to go, why? And then you track the Medicis and the reign of these families. Then you start to see what was going on, and then you can kind of start filling in the pieces as to why and why people fled, what was happening. I mean, there was a point in time in history where the streets of Florence ran red. I mean, it was just a warring city, and people don't realize that. But man, the art there.
The art. So let me ask you this: was there? I mean, the fact that there was a lot of art says a lot. So there's that. But was there also a lot of corruption or the dark side of that scenario back in those times, all part of the Renaissance period? Or does that question make any sense at all?
That's a really, I'm sure, like, I mean, but it's really, yes, because of how, I guess, the Medicis rose to power and all of these families rose to power, because they were actually like, they were not like thought of as like noble families. They became noble from wealth that they had acquired. And so like, they were like masonries, like they were like workers, and all of these workers had gotten somewhere. My husband knows all this. He's like looking at me smiling because I'm like trying not to mess up. And so as they rose up, they kind of like dominated the city, and they had the money and the power. And then when the Renaissance came, they hired the artists to create the art that they wanted. And I mean, it's my favorite genre of art. Kind of, I like a lot, but like it's one of my favorites. However, it's interesting when you think about the duress that all of these artists were creating under.
No, exactly.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
It's like ancient Egypt, basically. The same kind of with the pharaohs, making everybody make these statues and these monuments all about them.
Yes.
They had the power and the power to do it.
So in the Renaissance period, you had these families, they had a lot of money, so which gave them power and the ability to go out and sort of throw a lot of money at these artistic endeavors. So they had an appreciation of art, at least in part, that sort of plays a role. And we all know the Renaissance period was such a relevant period in the history of humankind. I mean, there's obviously a dark side to things, but yeah. So let's go on to other topics. We're over an hour now, so I want to wind her down.
We're about an hour now, yeah.
So I want to sort of like just kind of close it off with a few other questions. Maybe we went down some deep rabbit holes.
We did. We've got real.
I've been down a lot of rabbit holes with a lot of people, but I'm going to rank this one probably as the deepest, darkest, or whatever that I've gone down. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, though. I find it very, very fascinating. So. Yeah, there's more I could say about that, but I've
just been shutting up and listening to you two because I've just been amazed by it all. So
yeah,
you guys are wonderful. This is actually, it's been fun. There aren't that many people that want to have these conversations.
Well, you can talk to my wife. It's very hard to shut me up, so you can talk to my wife and say you're doing an awesome job.
Yeah, I'm impressed, John. No, it's good to take it. It's, if I can just say something real quickly, when I first got into photography, I think I went to my first live, not a convention, but a speaker, like a seminar. It was 1986, and I was like, "What? They have this kind of stuff?" And I was like 25 years old. I was like, "What?" And but then I sort of quickly questioned. These speakers would go up and talk, and I was like, I want to know the real struggles. I want to know the dark side, and I want to know, because they'd always paint a rosy picture, and I always thought, well, there's two sides to the story, and it's good to know and appreciate, and I think it helps to not only express it, but it helps those who have a curiosity for it and yearning to sort of know that stuff. And I don't know why that's the case with me. I am innately very curious. I love history. I love trends. I love studying trends and all that stuff. I'm not as focused as into art as you are. However, I'm in an artistic field, photography. So,
we haven't even gotten started on marketing. You should have me back and we can talk about the history of marketing.
Definitely.
American history of marketing.
well, wasn't there Freud's grandnephew, who played a big role in that? You know, the publicity, the grandfather of publicity?
We will have to actually talk about that another time. Or
know
that's
what
just
I'm
going to be
talking
like a
about.
whole nother rabbit hole that we're going to
we
be
won't-
walking down.
We won't get into it, but that's is that an example of someone that you're talking about?
No, but that's a whole not like that
Okay.
is somebody that's in there. But
Yeah, okay.
No.
Marketing is my number one passion, by the way, and yeah, we should get you back on here, and maybe we could talk about that. And
that would be fun because I think I'm going to learn a lot from you too. Because I do love the way people purchase and why they purchase and what drives the market, and the way people like to interact with sales and how they want to buy is really interesting too.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned two things. You mentioned Instagram, and which I find fascinating, and you said you talk with clients. So you really, as part of a your marketing mojo, it sounds to me like you really get to know them. You really connect with them, which is something we can do as artists, as photographers. You know, I mean, Joe the plumber, when he comes over to redo your plumbing, he's not going to sit down and have these long, deep conversations with you.
So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
What's the difference?
Sometimes people have a really nice wedding planner and they don't want to interact with us.
Really?
Yes.
Are those celebrities, VIP clients, and does that bother you?
No.
Okay,
I'm really good at my job. So as long as they let me in, which people do, I feel like we're disarming too. But you know, as long as they're their selves, they're allowed to be themselves around us, then I can photograph. I don't have to know them.
Yeah.
I do know them. I know them when I walk in. I know them when you know, we see it. But you know, I'll ask questions with the wedding planner and get to know them kind of through that person. But there are some people that live very, very busy lives. So up until I've been making this kind of marketing shift, my target market with weddings was busy couples. And then COVID hit and I was like, everybody's kind of at home. I mean, they might be busy, but they're still at home. But it was busy couples. And a lot of times busy couples didn't have time to meet with us. They didn't have the time to talk to us. So workflow was imperative. And, you know, and that's actually where I made mistakes and I messed up and I didn't like deliver stuff fast enough and I didn't do things the way I needed to. And I went, I've got to shift this because I care about these people. And, you know, we learn from trial and error. And I guess I'm talking about it because I think, you know, you brought up something. You were like, what's the nitty gritty? What's the good or the bad? Like, you know, tell me the real, you know, tell me not just the good, but the bad, you know, well, I made mistakes and I cared about people enough to start shifting that and knowing like, okay, well, these people don't actually want to spend a lot of time with me. Well, that's great because I have autism and I don't really want to be everybody's like best friend and holding their hand all the way through this.
You're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm like totally okay with that. I really just need the information that I need to know in order to be an artist. And I can create on like, I mean, like people are inspiring to me. So when I meet them or see them, whether it's the first time or I know them for a long time,
Right.
I can, and actually, as funny as it is, it's sometimes easier when you don't know the person.
Really?
Because you get to show up and then whatever they're presenting themselves in that moment in that day. And when you start diving in and it's almost like this exploratory thing.
Right.
And I get to kind of see, and I'm watching these nuances and it's not as performative. Like these people are not performing at all. And so I look for who's going to be the person that adjusts her dress the most gentle. Who's going to be the person that is there, but in the sidelines and is a little bit quieter because they're the people that are really watching what's happening. And then there are the loud people that are like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to do this and this and this. And they're very focused and, and I capture those people as well. But like, I'm looking for the interactions and the care within the relationships. And I don't meet anyone other than the bride and groom usually anyway.
Yeah.
And so to me, it doesn't matter. I'm doing what I do, whether I know them
no
super
preconceptions, just going with the moment.
Yeah.
So you're able to do that. You're able to go into a situation, wedding day, and just having met the couple.
Yeah.
And you can do that. You could. What is it you find the hardest about that, and what is it you find? Obviously, you said one of the coolest. There's almost a benefit to that. There's an advantage to that. But you seem to have the ability to work quickly that way in that kind of a situation where it might drive me nuts. I'm like, oh, I wish I'd have known these people. And sometimes people, when you don't know them, you show up on their wedding day, they have a preconceived notion of what they expect of you, and they throw that on me, and I'm like, that's not, you know what I mean? Sometimes I go in and they start ordering you around in one way, shape, or form, or they have expectations. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? And how do you work through that? How do you connect with him on the fly? You got very little time. You're jamming on stage there. You're playing your whatever instrument. You're just coming up with a solo. You got to come up with it and hit those notes.
That's actually a really good question that nobody's asked me. So I might have to think about this and get back with you because it's something that I naturally do. Like
you naturally do it.
When I get in there, and I remember early on, every now and again, there would be somebody that would try and step in and kind of order us around. And I would normally look at them and be like, they're just trying to be helpful. And then I would ask and be like, I know that you're trying to do your job and you're doing a really great job. Like, I see why you are in this position. Is there something that you need from me or you need me to do that I need to do now? Or, and I'll wait, and they'll usually be like, well, I'm just making sure. And I'm like, I don't need you to make sure that I'm doing my job. I am very professional.
Well, I think a lot of it too is the beginning part. They've went to your website, they've seen your work, they know what you do, they know your style and the way you work and the kind of photographs you do. A lot of times you think they're just going to go with what you want to do because they know your stuff and they hired you for a reason.
Well, and now, I mean, and that was like a scenario early on. But what I needed to do was just empower that person. They needed to feel like they were trying to just do their job. They were overachieving their job too hard.
Right.
And I think that happens. But now when I go places or I do something, I end up with like somebody's grandma coming up to me and being like, hey, and did you know about this? But they're telling me something cultural, or they're telling me something about family history, or they're telling me about something, and because they know that grandpa over there is about to walk over and give something or say something to the bride. And those relationships are incredible. And I'm actually going to think about why people do that to me, mainly because I like it. It's really, I'm glad that they embrace me and allow me to be a part of that, because they're not telling me how to do my job. They're telling me the importance of all of the people that are around. And that tells me how much everybody there loves each other and how much everyone there cares about each other. And I want to make sure that I photograph that love and that care.
That's pretty amazing. So when you were saying, when you created that scenario, when you showed up at a place like that and somebody was overachieving, they're overdoing, and it sounds to me like you listen, you respect them, and you ask questions. And I just kept thinking in my mind, how to win friends and influence people.
You know what's funny is I've never actually read that book.
Well, that scenario perfectly describes that book, and it's really all about that. And it sounds
That's
to me
so good. Every time I start reading that book, I'm like, I already know this.
Most people don't, I would imagine, or many don't, or we all need a reminder. Sounds to me like you've got that, whatever that is, going for you, and that's sort of part and parcel of what's working for you in that respect. And
that has to do with autism.
It does, eh?
Yeah, so I had to learn how to communicate, and I had to learn how to get people to like me, because if I'm seriously myself and I'm bold and I'm candid and I'm too loud, or
Right.
I'm all these things, my actual like being as a child literally offended people.
Right.
So I had to learn how not to be so offensive, I guess, which there's a good side to that and a bad side to that.
Uh-huh.
A bad side is that I lost myself a little bit, and I'm kind of in a world of rediscovering myself,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're constantly molding to make other people happy, you really do lose an
Yeah.
aspect of yourself. However, when I'm put in certain situations, the one thing that, especially on like a wedding day, is to know that it's not about you.
Yeah.
And too many people make things about themselves. And if we sit back and go, it's not about you, like
Yeah.
they're affecting me, they're talking to me. Essentially, it feels like they're attacking me. They're
Yeah.
ordering me around, but in reality, it's about them trying to do a good job, and it has nothing to do with me.
So
And so,
you
yeah,
had to learn this. It's like it was a skill set that you had to sort of like implement and master and learn.
yeah, or I would have no friends.
Oh, you'd be like John. No, I'm joking.
I mean, it's not really a joke. It's like very, very
No,
serious. Like,
I get it. I get it. In many ways, I relate to what you're saying, because I've always considered myself a late bloomer, and a lot of the skills that I had to pick up in life, I got much, much later, because of whatever was going on in my brain. But, I was very lost for many, many years. But it's part of my story, and it's obviously part of your story. And it's fascinating that the way our stories and our experiences, we weave through these journeys, and then we pick up these, I'm going to say, skill sets, these superpowers, whatever you want to call them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It wasn't there, and then now it's there. It's not like, you know, like I was extremely, extremely shy right through to my 20s. John, am I shy now?
You don't seem shy at all.
I will get up in front of a group of 1,000 people, and I'll make up a speech and talk for 30 minutes, and I'll dance in a pink tutu. Don't care. But that's not something that I was born with. It was something I had to discover and consciously say, okay, I want this for these reasons. And then I implemented them, and they're a skill set. It's like a muscle. So would you agree with that in a sense? I know you're talking about your background with autism and everything else and all the other experiences you went through. So you had to sort of learn how to take those skills, and obviously they worked for you to a large degree. But that's your journey, right? That's your journey.
Yeah. I mean, short answer, yes.
Short answer is good.
It's really complicated. It's really complicated. In the autistic community, it's called masking, and it can be not good. And
Yeah.
so there's a way. I mean, I spent a lot of time and energy working on myself, because that's the only thing that you can control. And then I got into this perfectionist
Right.
thing. And then it got to be that I had to be absolutely perfect all the time, or no one would ever like me. And
Right.
that's an issue too, because you can't be perfect all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then, and so those are the things that I'm working on becoming more confident in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're working with clients, there's kind of an on button.
Okay.
I'm an artist for them. I'm not myself, really. I mean, I am. I'm myself as an artist working for them. I almost get to
Mm-hmm.
I get to not have to worry about me, and I get to create and see. So in an essence, it's almost like the camera gets to be this tool that I get to document. So like when I'm photographing relationships, I'm photographing the relationships of people, like things that, in essence, really, I never had,
Right.
especially on a wedding day. And so when there's
Amazing.
a bridesmaid and she's got like 20 friends, I'm like, I had like 3, and they're like all but one had, like 2 of them have passed away. Like they're gone. Like I don't have, I didn't have a wedding. My
Yeah.
husband and I, nobody wanted us to get married. His parents quit talking to him for 5 years when he married me.
Right.
And, so I didn't have somebody to like zip up my dress. We didn't have somebody to be there. And, so when I'm there, I feel like I get to use this, and I care so much, and I understand the value of these relationships on such a deep level that when they get their photographs, people are like, it feels like I was there. And there's this beautiful sense of art, though, because the one thing that I do understand is restraint. And so all of the art that I have on top of the emotions and the feelings that I have and the way that I want these people to like cherish and love these people forever, because it's not my legacy, it's theirs. It's not my story, it's theirs. I'm hired because of the way I'm going to tell that story, because of the love and the care that I have. And so it's just a lot for me when I'm there. Oftentimes, like I feel and I'm feeling with them. Mm-hmm. And the things to know about autistic people is that we feel so much. That's a stereotype. It's like, oh, you shut down, you can't, there's all these stereotypes. And the thing is that it's not all true. It's a spectrum for a reason. But mm-hmm. to have a photographer that can create while feeling what you feel and care about the relationships on a level, just, I don't know. I know that sets me apart. I know that that's what is something that's different.
It's amazing. It sounds like you're very conscientious and aware of all these things. So I think that's a great way to end this live stream. What do you think? Maybe we can pick it up another day. We'll have you back. And
we can talk marketing then.
That would be fun. This is great. I love you guys. You're wonderful.
Well, we love you too. You're amazing. You're a beautiful soul. I really
very inspiring.
I had no idea we're going to go down these roads, but that's the way it is, and mm-hmm. we welcome it. So
that's why we don't anything with this show. We don't send you questions. We don't do it. We just want to have a conversation and let it take mm-hmm. it where it takes us.
I'm going to give you a couple of my
easier.
Here's a couple of my favorite quotes because I make notes. Don't starve your family to feed your soul. I love that one. Everyone wants to be a Picasso. I feel a beautiful sense of art. You just said that one, but you also used the word restraint. We'll talk about that another day. My last question to you, give me the short answer, please. Is your daughter back on the horse, metaphorically or for real?
So she has gone on a horse a couple of times.
Cool.
Let's just leave it there. Yes, she's still going. She's doing really well. She's doing really well. There were good things that happened and bad things happened. Like my kids started college at 16 and 17 years old. Mm-hmm. So like they ended up like, so she was like going through college with some of this stuff. And she's in Colorado now, actually. So like she's not even with us. She's getting her independence.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Much better healthcare there.
She's thriving.
Yes, she's doing really well.
Good.
This is good.
She's finding herself and being able to explore and, and that's everything that we want her to do.
Well,
not be held back.
Yeah, this is good. So you must be happy about all that, because to see your kid go through that is horrible, horrible stress and pain.
Yeah, she's doing good.
John, do you have a final question for Erin before we
No, I've just been fascinated just watching and listening and learning, and I find that I can learn. I'm like a sponge. I pick up things from everybody we have come on here, and your knowledge, especially just on the art history. I think that what sets your work apart from everybody else's, because you do have that passion, and I think that's the word we should end this on, is that the passion that she has. She's very passionate at what she does.
It shows.
Thank you.
Yep. With your work and with the people you work with. So
maybe we'll have you back someday. Looking forward to it. And I really appreciate you being here with us, Erin. And say hi to your husband. It was nice having him over there, wherever he is.
He's wonderful. We have a joke. Everyone needs a Marco.
Oh, nice. That's sort of
That's his name.
It's the same. I hear it all the time. With my wife's name is Tina. She's the studio manager, and everyone's told me that. I mean, yeah, you got Tina. Everybody needs a Tina.
Yeah, it doesn't sound so good when people say everybody needs a John. It doesn't come out the same way.
That can be interpreted.
Exactly. That's why it doesn't work as well as you guys.
This is true. Well, we love
Sorry,
you
that's my
anyways,
Toronto sense of humor coming out of me.
All right. So
All
we
right.
wind her down then? Thanks,
Yeah, I
Erin.
think that's it. And we'll see everybody else next time. Thanks for
Okay.
coming, Erin.
Goodbye. Thank you for having me.
See you.